Hello there, and welcome to the Sleep with Science channel, where tonight we are going to take you somewhere so vast, so achingly beautiful, and so profoundly beyond the reach of everything you have ever known, that by the time this journey is over, the very concept of distance will never feel quite the same again. So settle in. Let your body soften into whatever is holding you right now. Feel the weight of the day begin to lift, just slightly, like a breath you didn't realize you were holding finally being released. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. And let your mind, that tireless, restless, magnificent mind of yours, begin to loosen its grip on the ordinary world, because tonight, we are leaving it behind entirely. Close your eyes, if they aren't already. Imagine, for a moment, that you are floating, not falling, not drifting anxiously, just floating, perfectly suspended, weightless and warm, somewhere above the noise and the light and the ordinary pull of everything familiar. Below you, the earth is still there, soft and luminous and impossibly blue against a darkness that stretches in every direction without end. You can see the slow curve of the horizon, the thin gossamer veil of the atmosphere, that delicate breathing skin of air that separates all of life from the silence beyond. It is so thin from up here, so breathtakingly, heartbreakingly thin, and yet it holds everything. Every voice that has ever spoken your name, every song that has ever moved you, every night you have ever fallen asleep beneath a sky scattered with stars wondering, quietly, what was out there. And now you are out there. The silence up here is not empty. That is the first thing you begin to understand as you float and look outward. Silence in space is not the absence of something. It is the presence of everything, compressed into stillness. It is the hush of distances so enormous that no sound could survive the crossing. It is the quiet of a universe that has been expanding for 13.8 billion years and has never once stopped to rest. Above you, below you, in every direction you can possibly imagine and in directions your mind has no name for yet, the stars begin to appear. Not as points of light the way they look from a backyard on a clear summer night, but as themselves. Ancient, enormous, burning. Each one a sun. Each one a furnace of nuclear fire, fusing hydrogen into helium in its core, radiating light and heat and energy across distances that make the word distance feel almost embarrassingly small. The nearest star to our own sun, a red dwarf called Proxima Centauri, sits 4.2 light-years away. That means that the light you would see from that star tonight, that quiet red glimmer, left its surface 4 years ago. You are not seeing it as it is. You are seeing it as it was. Space is not just distance. Space is time. And as you begin to absorb that, as that thought settles somewhere deep in your chest, you let your gaze drift further, past the nearest stars, past the familiar patterns of constellations that ancient peoples named after gods and animals and stories they needed to tell, past the densest rivers of starlight that form the visible band of our own galaxy, the Milky Way, that enormous spiral structure of 300 billion stars of which our Sun is one, located roughly 2/3 of the way out from the center, on a modest, quiet arm, circling slowly, completing one full orbit of the galactic core every 230 million years. The last time our solar system was in this same position relative to the center of the Milky Way, dinosaurs had only just begun to walk the Earth. We live inside a galaxy so large that light itself, traveling at 186,000 miles every single second, would take 100,000 years to cross it from one edge to the other. 100,000 years of unbroken, unimaginable travel, at the fastest speed anything in the known universe is permitted to reach. And that is just our home. That is just the place we come from. That is just the cosmic neighborhood, if you can call something a neighborhood when your nearest neighbor is several thousand light-years away. And yet, even the Milky Way, that staggering city of stars we call home, is not alone. It is one of perhaps 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. 2 trillion islands of stars and gas and dust and mystery, each one containing hundreds of billions of suns, each one separated from the next by distances so vast, so violently, almost offensively vast, that the universe has essentially placed them beyond the reach of anything we know how to build, anything we know how to imagine building, and perhaps anything that the laws of physics as we understand them would ever permit to be built. That is what tonight is about. That infinite, humbling, quietly devastating truth that sits at the heart of everything we know about the cosmos. The truth that even in a universe as impossibly large as the one we inhabit, there are limits. There are distances that cannot be crossed. There are galaxies that we can see, that we have photographed, that we have named and studied and dreamed about, and that we will never reach. Not because we lack the will, not because we lack the imagination, but because the universe itself, in its ancient and indifferent wisdom, has written certain things into the fabric of reality that no amount of human ingenuity or longing or determination can unwrite. And there is something deeply, unexpectedly peaceful about that. Stay with that feeling for a moment. Let it settle. Because so much of what exhausts us in this life is the belief that everything can be solved, that every distance can be crossed, that every wall has a door hidden somewhere in it if only we look hard enough and long enough and want it badly enough. We carry that belief with us everywhere. It sits in our shoulders and our stomachs and the backs of our eyes at 3 in the morning when the mind refuses to quiet itself. The relentless, grinding pressure of a world that insists that nothing is truly unreachable if you simply try hard enough. But the universe does not agree. And tonight, in this soft and floating darkness, you are going to let that disagreement hold you like a blanket. Because there is a profound, bone-deep rest that comes from finally encountering something that is simply, irrevocably, and completely beyond reach. Something that asks nothing of you. Something that does not need you to solve it or cross it or conquer it. Something that simply exists at an unimaginable remove, burning with quiet fire, and asks only that you behold it from where you are. The galaxies are not waiting for us. They have no awareness of our longing. They do not know that small, soft creatures on a pale blue planet in an unremarkable corner of an ordinary spiral galaxy have spent centuries building instruments of extraordinary precision just to glimpse their light. They have been out there for billions of years before we arrived, and they will continue burning and spinning and colliding with each other in slow gravitational dances long after every trace of us has dissolved back into stardust. And yet we look. We have always looked. There is something written into the deepest nature of human consciousness that will not stop looking upward. Anthropologists have found evidence of astronomical observation in cultures that predate written language by thousands of years. Before we had words for what we were seeing, before we had mathematics precise enough to calculate what we were measuring, before we had any framework at all for understanding the scale of what lay above us, we were already watching, already wondering, already feeling, in some wordless and instinctual way, that the sky was telling us something important about who we were and where we had come from. And in a sense, it was. Because the atoms in your body, the calcium in your bones, the iron flowing through your blood right now, the oxygen filling your lungs with each slow and deepening breath you take, none of it was made on Earth. None of it was made in our solar system. Every heavy element in your body was forged inside a dying star, in the nuclear furnace of a supernova explosion so violent and so luminous that for a brief moment it outshone entire galaxies. The universe did not just create the conditions for your existence. The universe built you, piece by piece, across billions of years, in the hearts of stars you will never see, in galaxies you will never visit, across distances that dwarf every concept of scale your mind currently holds. You are, in the most literal and scientifically precise sense of the phrase, made of the cosmos. And so when you look up at the night sky, when you let your eyes soften and your thoughts grow quiet and you feel that strange, wordless ache at the sight of the stars, that is not you looking at something foreign and unreachable. That is the universe looking at itself. Through you. With you. As you. Let that land. Take a slow breath in. And as you exhale, let the last of the tension in your body follow that breath outward, into this vast and patient darkness around you. You are still floating. Still suspended. Still weightless and warm and perfectly held in the quiet between heartbeats. The earth is still below you, still impossibly beautiful, still breathing its slow atmospheric breath. And ahead of you, in every direction, the universe continues its ancient and unhurried business of being incomprehensibly large. Now, let your gaze travel. Gently. There is no rush here. There never was. Let your attention drift outward from the familiar blue arc of home, past the cold and cratered face of our moon hanging silver and still in the dark, past the rust-colored silence of Mars turning slowly on its axis, past the great golden bands of Saturn's rings catching sunlight across 1 billion miles of nothing, past the cold blue giants Neptune and Uranus where winds scream at speeds no earthly storm has ever matched, and further still, out to the very edge of our solar system, where the sun itself has faded to something barely brighter than the other stars, and the darkness becomes a thing you could almost reach out and touch. This is the heliopause, the place where the sun's influence finally, reluctantly, releases its hold on the space around it. The place where the solar wind, that constant invisible stream of charged particles flowing outward from our star in all directions, finally meets the interstellar medium and loses the last of its strength, dissipating into the broader ocean of the galaxy like a whisper swallowed by silence. The Voyager 1 spacecraft, that small and extraordinary machine humanity launched in 1977, crossed this boundary in 2012, becoming the first human-made object to enter interstellar space. It is currently, as of this moment, more than 23 billion kilometers from Earth. And yet, in the context of the distances we are going to explore tonight, that number, that staggering, almost incomprehensible 23 billion kilometers, amounts to little more than a single step outside the front door. Let that sit with you for a moment. 23 billion kilometers. A distance so large that the signal Voyager sends back to Earth, traveling at the speed of light, takes more than 22 hours to arrive. 22 hours for light to cross the distance between that small golden machine and the planet that built it. And in the scale of the universe, Voyager has gone essentially nowhere. It has not even begun to approach the nearest star. At its current speed, it would take Voyager approximately 73,000 years to reach Proxima Centauri, and Proxima Centauri is not even traveling in its direction. 73,000 years of silent, unwitnessed travel through the cold between the stars, and it would still be inside our own galactic neighborhood. Still inside the Milky Way. Still unfathomably far from the edge of our galaxy, let alone the vast and lightless gulf that lies beyond it. And beyond that gulf is where the real story begins. But we are not there yet. And that is exactly as it should be. Because a journey of this magnitude cannot be rushed. It must be felt. It must be allowed to accumulate, the way sleep accumulates when you stop fighting it and simply let the darkness in. So let us stay here for a little while longer, at the edge of our solar system, in this place of in-between, where the familiar gives way to the truly unknown. Let the cold of interstellar space settle around you, not as something threatening, but as something ancient and neutral and deeply, profoundly still. The temperature out here hovers just a few degrees above absolute zero. The coldest cold. The stillness beneath all stillness. The baseline hum of a universe that has been cooling slowly for nearly 14 billion years. There are no seasons here. No days. No nights. No weather of any kind. Time still passes, technically, though even that becomes a strange and slippery concept this far from any gravitational anchor of significance. Einstein showed us that time is not the fixed and reliable river we experience it to be from the surface of a planet. It bends. It stretches. It moves at different rates depending on how fast you are traveling and how deep you sit in a gravitational field. Near the surface of a massive star, time slows measurably. Near the event horizon of a black hole, time slows to a crawl, approaching but never quite reaching a complete stop. Time, that thing you have measured in heartbeats and seasons and years, is not a constant. It is a fabric. And the universe has been folding and stretching and curving that fabric since the very first fraction of the very first second of its existence. Breathe that in. You are not just a creature of space. You are a creature of space-time. The ground beneath your feet, the pillow beneath your head, the air moving gently in and out of your lungs, all of it is embedded in a four-dimensional fabric that bends around every object with mass, including you. You are, in the most technically precise sense, bending space-time right now. Infinitesimally, unmeasurably in any practical sense. But you are there, making your tiny, soft impression on the geometry of the universe simply by existing. And the universe, for its part, is making its impression on you. Every cosmic ray that passes through your body tonight, and they are passing through it right now, those high-energy particles streaking in from supernovae and black holes and distant galaxies at nearly the speed of light, they have been traveling for millions or billions of years to reach this exact moment, this exact room, this exact gentle and softening version of you lying here in the dark. The universe has been sending you messages since before you were born. And the beautiful, humbling truth is that you don't need to understand the messages to receive them. Your body has been receiving them all along. Out here, past the heliopause, past the last warm suggestion of our sun's influence, the interstellar medium surrounds everything. It is not empty. That is another thing they don't tell you often enough. That space is not empty. What we call the vacuum of space is actually a thin and extraordinarily diffuse soup of gas and dust and magnetic fields and radiation and quantum fluctuations, the faint residue of everything that has ever exploded or collapsed or burned out across the history of the cosmos. It is, on average, less dense than the best vacuum we can produce in any laboratory on Earth. And yet it is there, whispering, full of information about every star that has ever died in its vicinity, every shock wave that has passed through it, every gravitational ripple that has folded it ever so slightly out of shape as two massive objects somewhere in the dark spiraled toward each other and merged in a collision so violent that it sent ripples through the very fabric of spacetime itself, ripples we call gravitational waves, ripples that travel outward at the speed of light in every direction, passing through everything, through planets and stars and the cold interstellar medium, and eventually through the walls of buildings and the bodies of sleeping people on a small blue world circling an ordinary star, so faint by the time they arrive that they stretch and compress the entire diameter of the Earth by less than the width of a single proton, and yet real, measurably, verifiably, beautifully real, detected for the first time by human instruments in 2015, proving once again that the universe is not content to simply exist in silence, that it is always, in its own ancient and unhurried way, communicating. And we are listening. That is perhaps one of the most quietly extraordinary things about this particular moment in cosmic history, the moment you and I are sharing right now in this soft and floating darkness. Of all the billions of years this universe has been expanding and burning and cooling and collapsing and rebuilding itself in endlessly complex new configurations, this is the sliver of time in which something on at least one small planet developed the capacity to look outward and understand, even partially, even imperfectly, what it was seeing. The universe has produced, through an unimaginably long chain of physical and chemical and biological accidents, something that can wonder about it. Something that can build instruments sensitive enough to detect the tremor of two black holes merging a billion light-years away. Something that can sit in the dark and feel awe. You are that something. And tonight, that wondering, awe-capable consciousness of yours is going to travel further than any human instrument has yet reached. Not in a spacecraft. Not through any technology we currently possess or are likely to possess within any time frame that feels relevant to a human life. But in the way that consciousness has always traveled, through attention, through imagination, through the slow and deliberate practice of allowing the mind to grow quiet enough that the scale of things can begin to genuinely land. So let us continue moving. Gently. There is still no rush. The universe has waited billions of years for this moment of being contemplated, and it will not grow impatient now. Past the heliopause, past the thin scattering of distant icy bodies in the outermost reaches of what we loosely call our solar system, the Oort cloud begins. This is a vast and barely understood spherical shell of frozen objects, comets in waiting, chunks of ancient ice and rock that were flung outward in the early turbulent history of our solar system and have been drifting in the cold ever since. The Oort cloud is so large that its outer edge may extend almost a quarter of the way to the nearest star. A quarter of the way. And we have never directly observed a single object within it. We know it exists because of the comets that occasionally fall inward toward the sun, their long elliptical orbits carrying them in from that cold and distant reservoir on journeys that can take millions of years to complete. A comet you might see blazing across the sky on a clear night, its tail of sublimating ice streaming behind it in the solar wind, may have last been this close to the sun before our species existed. Before our genus existed. Before the continents had settled into anything resembling their current arrangement. Time and space, out here, have a different texture entirely. And as the last tendrils of the Oort cloud finally thin and disappear behind you, something shifts. Something opens. The interstellar space ahead is no longer the interstellar space adjacent to our solar system. It is the open galaxy. The deep between. The long, cold, staggeringly beautiful emptiness that lies between one star and the next, and the next, and the next, stretching in all directions across the full breadth of the Milky Way. The average distance between stars in our galaxy is approximately 4 to 5 light-years. That means that for every star you see in the night sky, there are roughly 4 to 5 light-years of essentially nothing between it and its nearest neighbor. 4 to 5 years of uninterrupted travel at the speed of light, which is a speed that no material object has ever reached or, according to our current understanding of physics, ever can reach. The stars look crowded from here. They look like a scattering of light that you could almost reach out and touch if you stretched far enough. But that is only because the distances involved are so enormous that even the space between stars compresses into apparent closeness when viewed across the even more enormous distances between galaxies. This is one of the great perceptual deceptions of the cosmos. The night sky lies to you, gently and magnificently, every single night. It presents you with a flat tapestry of light when what actually exists is a depth so profound, a layering so complex, that no two-dimensional image has ever come close to capturing it. Some of the stars you see on a clear night are a few dozen light-years away. Others are thousands. Some of what you think are stars are entire galaxies, containing hundreds of billions of their own stars, so distant that their combined light has blurred into what appears to the naked eye as a single faint point, indistinguishable from a lone sun 100 times closer. The sky is not what it appears to be, and the further you allow your understanding to reach into its true nature, the more the word impossible begins to feel less like a limitation and more like a kind of sacred geometry, a shape carved into the universe itself, precise and unalterable, as permanent as the speed of light that enforces it. And it is the speed of light we must stay with for a while, because it is the central fact around which everything else arranges itself. Not a suggestion. Not a barrier that future engineering might one day circumvent with enough ingenuity and enough time. A law. A ceiling built not into our technology but into the architecture of space and time themselves. Einstein understood this more than a century ago, and everything we have observed in the universe since has confirmed it with a precision that borders on the sacred. Nothing with mass, nothing made of matter, nothing you could hold or touch or build a ship from, can reach the speed of light. Not approach it comfortably. Not nudge against it with the right fuel. The mathematics become violent long before you arrive. As an object accelerates, it requires more and more energy to continue accelerating, and as it approaches the speed of light, that required energy approaches infinity. Not a very large number. Infinity. The universe is not being unkind. It is simply telling you the truth about what it is. Light itself travels at roughly 299,792 kilometers per second. In a single second, a photon of light crosses a distance so vast that if you were to drive it in a car at highway speed, the journey would take you more than 3,000 years. In 1 second. And yet even at that incomprehensible velocity, crossing the distance between galaxies is not a matter of months or years or centuries. It is a matter of millions of years. The Andromeda Galaxy, our nearest large galactic neighbor, sits approximately 2.537 million light-years away from us. A beam of light, traveling at the only speed it knows how to travel, would require 2.5 million years to complete that crossing. Not 2.5 million years of passenger experience, 2.5 million years of elapsed time in the universe outside the vessel. 2.5 million years of civilizations rising and collapsing on whatever worlds exist along the way. 2.5 million years of stellar births and deaths. 2.5 million years of the Earth continuing its quiet revolutions around a sun that will, long before that journey concludes, have changed beyond recognition. There is a subtlety here that deserves to rest in your mind for a moment, the way a stone settles into still water. If you were somehow aboard a vessel traveling at a meaningful fraction of the speed of light, not at the speed itself, which remains forbidden, but at some breathtaking percentage of it, time dilation would begin to compress your personal experience of the journey. At very high fractions of light speed, the relativistic effects become profound enough that the crew of such a vessel might experience only decades while millions of years passed outside. This is not science fiction. It is a direct consequence of special relativity, tested and confirmed in particle accelerators, in atomic clocks aboard satellites, in the precise measurements that make your navigation systems work. Time is not fixed. It bends under the influence of velocity and gravity, and at extreme speeds, it stretches the gap between personal experience and external reality into something almost theological in its strangeness. And yet, even granting this, even allowing the mind to rest inside the dream of such a vessel, moving at 99% of the speed of light, its crew aging slowly while the universe ages rapidly around them, the problem does not dissolve. It deepens. Because the crew would arrive. After perhaps decades of their own experience time, they might emerge from their journey having crossed 2.5 million light-years of space. But they would arrive into a universe 2.5 million years older than the one they left. Everyone they had ever known would be gone. Every civilization that existed at the moment of their departure would have had 2.5 million years to flourish and perish. The Earth's continents would have drifted into new configurations. The sun would be older in ways that matter, and the galaxy they had traveled toward would itself have aged, moved, changed in ways that cannot be predicted across such a span. They would not be returning home. They would not be visiting a neighbor. They would be arriving as something closer to ghosts, witnesses to a future so distant from their origin that the word home would have become purely metaphorical, a concept their minds carried but the universe no longer supported. This is the shape of the problem, and it is not a small shape. It is not the kind of obstacle that waits patiently for human ingenuity to arrive with a solution. It is woven into the fabric of what space and time actually are, and to understand it fully is to feel something shift quietly inside your understanding of what it means to exist in this particular universe, in this particular moment, on this particular world. The cosmos did not arrange itself to accommodate our desire for exploration. It arranged itself according to rules that were already ancient before the first star ignited, and those rules do not bend because we find them inconvenient, or because we are curious, or because the night sky fills us with a longing so deep it feels like it must mean something, must point toward some possibility not yet imagined, some door not yet found in the architecture of the impossible. Longing, the universe reminds us, is not a map. It is simply what consciousness feels when it becomes aware of its own edges. And we are very much aware of our edges now. There is a concept in cosmology that does not receive enough quiet attention, one that deserves to be held gently in the mind the way you might hold something fragile and luminous, something that changes the longer you look at it. It is called the observable universe. Not the universe. The observable universe. The distinction is not semantic. It is one of the most profound separations in all of human understanding, a line drawn not by our instruments or our ignorance, but by light itself and by the amount of time light has had to travel since the universe began. We can only see as far as light has been able to travel in the approximately 13.8 billion years since the cosmos came into existence. Beyond that horizon, space continues. It almost certainly continues for an incomprehensible distance, perhaps infinitely. But no light from those regions has had time to reach us yet. They exist in a darkness not of their own making, simply beyond the reach of the time that has so far elapsed. They are there. We simply cannot see them, and more importantly, they cannot see us. The observable universe stretches roughly 46 billion light-years in every direction from where we stand. You might pause on that number and feel it resist comprehension, which is the appropriate response, because it is genuinely incomprehensible to the human mind in any direct sense. We can write the number. We can manipulate it mathematically. But to feel it, to hold its true scale in conscious experience, is not something our minds were shaped to do. We evolved to navigate grasslands and judge distances between trees. The neural architecture that served those purposes is the same architecture we are now asking to contemplate 46 billion light-years, and it does its best, which is to say it produces a kind of reverent blankness, a silence where astonishment used to be. Within that observable sphere, there are estimated to be somewhere in the range of 2 trillion galaxies. 2 trillion. Each one a gravitationally bound system of stars, gas, dust, dark matter, and possibility. Each one containing anywhere from millions to hundreds of billions of individual stars. Each one separated from its nearest neighbors by distances measured in millions of light-years, distances that are not empty in any simple sense but are filled with a thin, diffuse medium of intergalactic space, threaded with magnetic fields, with stray atoms, with the faint warmth of the cosmic microwave background, the ancient afterglow of the universe's earliest moments still drifting through everything, touching everything, a whisper from a beginning so remote that the mind reaches for it, and finds only silence and a kind of awe that has no adequate name. And those 2 trillion galaxies are not standing still. This is the part that the static images in textbooks cannot quite convey, the part that requires you to let go of the picture and sit instead with emotion. The universe is expanding. Not expanding into anything. There is no surrounding space for it to expand into, no exterior container into which it spreads. Space itself is expanding. The fabric is stretching, and as it stretches, the galaxies embedded within it move apart from one another the way dots drawn on the surface of a balloon move apart as the balloon is inflated. No individual galaxy is traveling through space toward some distant edge. Space itself is growing between them, and the further apart 2 galaxies are, the faster that growth carries them from each other's perspective. This discovery, confirmed in the late 20th century with a precision that startled even the scientists who made it, revealed something that had not been anticipated. The expansion of the universe is not slowing down under the influence of gravity, as had been assumed. It is accelerating. Something we call dark energy because we do not know what it is, because naming it is the closest we can come to understanding it, is driving the expansion faster and faster with each passing epoch. The universe is not coasting. It is accelerating away from itself, and the implications of this acceleration extend far beyond the merely astronomical into something that begins to feel almost like fate, almost like the universe's own long, slow exhale toward an ending so distant it carries no emotional weight, only a kind of mathematical serenity. What this means for the dream of reaching another galaxy is something that unfolds slowly, the way a difficult truth often does, arriving not all at once but in layers, each one settling before the next is revealed. The galaxies that are currently within our observable universe, those 2 trillion luminous islands of stars and time, are not all equally reachable even in principle. Many of them are already receding from us faster than the speed of light. Not because they are moving through space faster than light moves through space, that remains impossible, but because the space between us and them is expanding so rapidly that the combined effect of all that stretching fabric produces a recession velocity that exceeds the cosmic speed limit. Light they emit today will never reach us. It will spend eternity traveling in our direction and never arrive, carried backward by the expansion faster than it can move forward through it. There is something in that image worth dwelling inside for a moment, the idea of light that will never arrive, that has been traveling for billions of years in perfect faithfulness to its own nature, crossing the dark between worlds, and yet will never complete its journey because the destination is moving away faster than the messenger can follow. It is not a tragedy in any human sense. The light does not know. The galaxy does not mourn. But the mind that contemplates it feels something quiet and strange, something that sits between grief and wonder and does not quite resolve into either. This boundary, the boundary beyond which recession velocity exceeds the speed of light, is called the cosmic event horizon. It is not a physical wall. You would not feel it if you passed through it. There is no change in the color of the light around you, no trembling in the instruments, no signal of any kind to mark the crossing. It is a boundary defined entirely by mathematics and by the rate at which the universe is expanding, and it sits at a distance of roughly 16 billion light-years from us in the current epoch. Everything beyond that horizon is, in the most precise and literal sense, permanently beyond reach. Not beyond reach with current technology. Not beyond reach until we develop better propulsion or better understanding. Beyond reach as a permanent condition of the universe we inhabit. The expansion will not slow. The horizon will not recede in a way that grants us more territory. In fact, over vast stretches of cosmic time, the horizon will draw closer to us as the acceleration continues, and galaxies that are currently within our reach in principle will eventually cross it, blinking out of causal contact forever, their light redshifted into silence, their existence reduced to something we can remember but can no longer confirm. The Andromeda Galaxy will not suffer this fate. It and the Milky Way are gravitationally bound to each other, members of what astronomers call the local group, a collection of roughly 80 galaxies held together by their mutual gravity against the expansion of space around them. Gravity, at these local scales, wins. The space between the Milky Way and Andromeda is not expanding, because the gravitational attraction between them is strong enough to overcome the expansion. In fact, the 2 galaxies are approaching each other, moving toward a collision that will unfold over the next several billion years in slow and spectacular fashion, a merger so vast and so gradual that no individual star is likely to physically strike another, but the shapes and structures of both galaxies will be transformed entirely, drawn and stretched and woven together by mutual gravity into something new, something that has no name yet because we will not be here to name it. But the local group, for all its relative intimacy, is itself an island. Beyond its boundaries, the expansion of the universe asserts itself completely, and the galaxies of other groups and clusters and superclusters drift away from us on the expanding fabric, some already beyond the event horizon, others approaching it, all of them subject to a cosmic drift that no engine we could conceive would be sufficient to overcome. Because here is the thing that the mind tends to resist, the thing that takes several passes to settle into understanding. The challenge of reaching another galaxy is not simply the challenge of crossing a very large distance. If the universe were static, if space were not expanding, then in principle the problem would reduce to one of time and energy and engineering, and while those challenges would be formidable, they would exist within the domain of problems that patience and ingenuity might eventually address. But the universe is not static. The distance between us and a galaxy 1 billion light-years away is not fixed. It is growing. Every moment we spend contemplating the journey, the destination moves further away. And it moves further away not at some manageable rate, not at a speed we might subtract from with sufficient velocity, but at a rate that increases with distance, so that the further the galaxy is, the faster it recedes, and the faster it recedes, the more energy would be required to make progress against that recession, and beyond the event horizon. No amount of energy is sufficient because the recession itself is not motion through space but the expansion of space, something that no engine can push against because there is no surface to push against, no medium to exhaust, no direction in which thrust produces the desired result. It is like trying to run toward a destination painted on a sheet of rubber that is being stretched faster than you can run. The image is too small for the reality, but it gestures toward it. The rubber does not resist your feet. You are running normally, exerting every possible effort, achieving every possible speed available to you within the rules of physics. And still the destination recedes, because the ground itself is the thing that is moving, and you are part of the ground, and there is no vantage point outside the sheet from which to gain purchase. This is the condition. This is the shape of the cosmos we were born into, the particular universe whose laws and dimensions and rates of expansion were already fixed before the first hydrogen atom cooled enough to hold together, before the first star ignited in the dark, before any world existed on which a mind could form and look upward and begin to wonder about the distances. The wondering came late. The distances were always there, patient and absolute, indifferent not through cruelty but through the simple absence of the capacity for cruelty. The universe does not withhold. It simply is what it is, structured the way it is structured, governed by the constants it was given at the moment of its becoming, and those constants do not include any provision for the desires of the creatures that eventually emerged within it to look outward and feel the particular ache of wanting to go somewhere they can never go. And yet the wanting persists. This is perhaps the most human thing there is, the capacity to long for something the cosmos has made structurally unavailable. We are made of the same atoms as everything else, assembled by the same forces, subject to the same laws, and yet somewhere in the arrangement of those atoms into nervous systems and minds and the long accumulated experience of being alive and aware, something emerged that the rest of the universe does not appear to possess. A sense of elsewhere, a reaching, a conviction, felt more than reasoned, that the lights in the sky are not merely objects but invitations, and that the appropriate response to an invitation is to accept it, regardless of what the mathematics of space-time have to say on the subject. There is a particular kind of grief that comes with understanding the cosmic event horizon fully, not the sharp grief of sudden loss, but a slower and more diffuse thing, something more like the feeling of watching a door close at the end of a very long corridor, knowing you will not reach it in time, knowing the closing is not aimed at you but happens anyway, with the same inevitability as everything else in a universe governed by laws rather than intentions. The galaxies beyond the horizon are not being taken from us. They were never ours. But they were visible once, at least in principle, and the knowledge that visibility is a temporary condition, that the universe's accelerating expansion will over vast timescales dim and then erase even the evidence that other galaxies exist, has a weight to it that settles differently than other astronomical facts. In the very far future, if any minds persist to observe it, the night sky will be profoundly different from the one we know. The galaxies of the local group will have long since merged into a single enormous elliptical galaxy, their stars redistributed by billions of years of gravitational interaction into a new and quieter configuration. And beyond that merged remnant, the sky will be dark. Not dark in the way our sky is dark between the stars, peppered with faint smudges of light that patient eyes and long exposures can resolve into the faces of distant galaxies. Dark in the sense of genuinely, completely empty of extragalactic light. Every other galaxy will have crossed the event horizon. Their light will no longer reach us. An astronomer in that distant era, working with whatever instruments that civilization possesses, will look outward and find nothing. No redshifted spirals at the edge of visibility. No faint clusters suggesting the universe extends beyond the local group. Just the stars of their own merged galaxy, and beyond them, darkness, and beyond the darkness, more darkness, and no way to know from observation alone that the universe contains anything else at all. They would have to inherit the knowledge. They would have to receive it across the generations from an era when the sky still showed its full hand, when the evidence of cosmic largeness was still written in light accessible to telescopes. If that inheritance were broken, if the record were lost, they would have no way to reconstruct it from fresh observation. The universe would have hidden itself from them completely, not through any act of concealment, but through the simple mechanical consequence of expansion and time. This is a thought that carries a particular quietness with it. We live in a privileged era. The universe is currently more legible than it will ever be again. The evidence of its true scale and structure is available to us in a way it will not be available to minds that come later, if any come at all. The light is still arriving. The story is still being told. And we are here to receive it. This is not a small thing. It would be easy, in the shadow of everything the cosmos refuses us, to feel only limitation. To sit with the knowledge of the event horizon and the impossibility of intergalactic travel and feel that the universe is a closed room dressed up to look like an open one. But there is another way to hold it, and it requires only a slight shift in the angle of attention, a turning of the mind from what is forbidden toward what has been given. We exist in a window. A specific and unrepeatable window of cosmic time during which the universe is old enough to have formed stars and planets and the long chemistry of life, but young enough that the evidence of its full architecture is still visible, still written in the arriving light of 2 trillion galaxies, still available to any mind patient enough and quiet enough to look. The fact that we cannot go there does not mean we cannot know it. And knowing, it turns out, is a form of reaching that the universe has not prohibited. The mind travels where the body cannot. The understanding extends past every physical barrier the cosmos has placed between us and the elsewhere we long for, not arriving, never arriving, but moving nonetheless, outward and outward through the dark, following the light back toward its origin. And what is the origin, when you trace it far enough back through the cooling and the condensing, through the first light and the first silence before light, through the singularity that was not a place but a becoming, what you find is not emptiness. You find potential. A word that contains within it the whole of everything that has ever happened or will happen, pressed into a geometry so small it defies the instruments we would use to measure it. The origin is not behind us the way a door is behind you when you have passed through it. The origin is woven into the present moment, into the photons arriving at the back of your eye even now as you rest, into the hydrogen in the water that moves slowly through your body, forged in the first 3 minutes of everything, carried forward across 13.8 billion years to be here, in this room, in this breath, participating. There is a number that astronomers use to describe the rate at which the universe is pulling itself apart. It is called the Hubble constant, and it is one of the most argued over numbers in all of science, its precise value contested not from ignorance but from the extraordinary care with which it is being measured, because the people doing the measuring understand what it means. It tells us how fast a galaxy 1 megaparsec away is receding from us. It tells us, if you follow it carefully, how much time remains before the visible universe begins to shrink, not in physical size, but in knowable size, in the number of galaxies that still have time to send their light across the narrowing distance before the expansion overtakes it. The number is somewhere around 70. 70 kilometers per second per megaparsec. And from that number, if you are patient, you can calculate a kind of cosmic deadline. Not for us. Not for our civilization or our species, which will face its own much nearer endings. But for the universe as an information system. For the universe as a thing that can be seen and therefore known. That deadline is inconceivably far away. Hundreds of billions of years. Long after our sun has exhausted itself and cooled to a dim ember. Long after the Milky Way and Andromeda have completed their slow collision and settled into something new. An elliptical galaxy without a name that contains the remnants of everything we once called home. By that time, the universe will look almost entirely dark. The galaxies that are still visible to us tonight, all 2 trillion of them, will have one by one crossed the horizon. Not destroyed. Not gone in any absolute sense. Only unreachable. Only unknowable. The light they are sending right now will never finish arriving. And so this moment, this precise position in cosmic history, is something stranger and more precious than we typically allow ourselves to feel. We are living in the era of galaxies. An era that has a beginning and an end, that will not last forever, that the universe will eventually move past the way a river moves past a particular arrangement of stones. The stones remain. The water does not return. Right now, tonight, the era of galaxies is at something close to its height. The great structures of the cosmos are mature enough to be read and young enough to still be readable. We are not too early and not too late. We are here, in the middle of the only window during which a mind like ours, attached to a body like ours, living on a world like ours, could look up and see the full scope of what the universe has built. This is not a coincidence. It is not luck in the shallow sense of the word. It is the result of the same processes that made looking possible in the first place. Carbon chemistry requires stars. Stars require time. Time requires an expanding universe cooling slowly through its long sequence of transitions. Everything that makes consciousness possible is entangled with everything that makes this particular window of cosmic visibility possible. We see because we are late enough. We see everything because we are not yet too late. The 2 facts are connected at their roots, the way the depth of a river is connected to the same rain that fills it. When you lie still in the dark and let the weight of the day release from your body, there is a kind of descent that happens. A settling. The noise of the immediate world grows quieter, and something older and larger becomes faintly perceptible. Not a sound exactly. Not a thought. Something more like an orientation. A sense of direction that has nothing to do with north or south or the walls of the room. It is the direction outward. The direction the light travels when it leaves a star and begins its long journey through the vacuum, not knowing if anything will ever intercept it, not knowing if the universe contains any receivers for the information it carries. You are a receiver. This is not a metaphor. The photons that left distant stars are entering your atmosphere and scattering in the air above you right now. The signal the universe has been broadcasting for billions of years is arriving continuously, patiently, at the surface of every dark and quiet place on this small planet. You cannot cross the distance. No one can. But the distance, in its own way, is crossing you, passing through you, leaving its faint impression on the atoms that make up the boundary between you and the rest of Everything. The boundary is not as solid as it feels. The universe does not stop at your skin. It moves through you the way wind moves through tall grass, bending each blade slightly, leaving no blade unchanged. Right now, as you breathe slowly in the dark, neutrinos born in the nuclear heart of the sun are passing through your body at nearly the speed of light, billions of them every second, touching nothing, disturbing nothing, and yet passing through the full depth of you as though you were made of open air. You are, to certain kinds of light, entirely transparent. And that transparency is not emptiness. It is participation of a quieter kind. The universe has many ways of reaching across its own distances. Light is the most familiar. Radio waves, which are only light at longer wavelengths, carry information across the same impossible spans, and we have spent decades now listening for patterns in that radio silence, training enormous dishes of metal toward the sky, asking the darkness if anything else is awake inside it. So far the silence has answered with silence. But the silence is not empty. It is full of the hiss of the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the beginning itself, a soft and nearly uniform radiation that fills every direction of the sky with equal gentleness, the oldest light in the universe, released when the cosmos was only 380,000 years old and had cooled just enough for electrons and protons to join for the first time into neutral hydrogen, and for the universe to become, for the first time, transparent to its own light. That moment is called recombination. It is one of the great transitions in the long life of the cosmos, a threshold crossed only once, after which the universe that had been opaque and roiling and filled with a plasma so hot it glowed in every direction became something clearer, something navigable by light. Before recombination, no photon could travel far without being absorbed and re-emitted and scattered endlessly by the charged fog of unbound particles. After recombination, light was free. And the light released at that threshold has been traveling ever since. It is traveling now. It is arriving now. It is the background hum beneath all other signals. The oldest story the universe is still in the act of telling. When you rest your attention on a single breath, following it inward and then outward, there is a patience required that most waking hours do not allow. The breath asks nothing dramatic. It does not arrive with urgency. It simply comes, and it simply goes, and in the space between the two there is a stillness that does not belong entirely to you. Astronomers who spend their lives attending to faint signals from distant sources develop something similar. A capacity for patience that reshapes the way time feels. Because the signals they are waiting for do not hurry. The universe does not send its information quickly. It sends it at the speed of light, which sounds fast and is also, given the distances involved, breathtakingly slow. A signal from the Andromeda galaxy takes 2.5 million years to arrive. A signal from the edge of the observable universe takes 13.5 billion. The universe is generous with information and utterly indifferent to urgency. There is a kind of peace available in that indifference, if you are willing to receive it as peace rather than abandonment. The cosmos is not in a hurry. It has never been in a hurry. The stars form over millions of years from clouds of gas that drift and cool and slowly, incrementally, collapse under the weight of their own gathering. Planets accrete from the leftover dust across millions more. Life, where it arises, does not spring into being in an afternoon. It accumulates, one improbable step at a time, across spans of time so large they stop feeling like time and start feeling like landscape, something you stand inside rather than something that passes. You are the result of 4 billion years of incremental accumulation on one small wet world orbiting one unremarkable star. The universe was not rushing when it made you. It was doing what it always does, which is allowing what is possible to slowly become what is actual. And what has become actual is remarkable in ways that are easy to forget when you are tired, when the weight of small things presses the larger ones out of view. A mind capable of tracing its own origin across billions of years. A nervous system so finely tuned it can detect a single photon under the right conditions, can feel the difference between silk and stone, can recognize a voice heard once across a decade of silence. A body that breathes without instruction, that heals without being asked, that carries forward in its very chemistry the long history of every world and star that contributed to its making. You are not a visitor to this universe. You are one of the things it has done with itself. One of the shapes it has taken in this particular window of time, in this particular arrangement of matter and energy and the laws that govern how they interact. The galaxies you cannot reach are made of the same laws. Gravity works there the way it works here. Hydrogen burns there the way it burns here. The speed of light is the same in every corner of the observable universe, a constant so fundamental it is less a measurement than a definition, a boundary built into the structure of reality itself, woven into the fabric of what space and time are allowed to do. And because those laws are universal, because they do not vary from one galaxy to the next or change their behavior in the deep voids between clusters, the universe is, in a profound and underappreciated sense, already unified. Not by travel, not by contact, not by any bridge we might one day build across the darkness, but by the consistency of the rules, by the fact that what we learn here applies there, that the physics we have uncovered on this small world, in our laboratories and our observatories and our long nights of patient calculation, describes with extraordinary accuracy the behavior of matter and energy everywhere the light has ever shown us. This is not a small thing to sit with. It means that distance, for all its enormity, does not produce strangeness in the deepest sense. The Andromeda Galaxy is not operating according to different principles. The galaxy clusters at the edge of the observable universe are not following rules we have never encountered. They are following the same rules, expressed at larger scales and across longer times, but recognizable, mappable, continuous with everything we know. The universe is not a collection of separate places with separate natures. It is one place, one set of relationships, one long unfolding of the same initial conditions across all the space that space has had time to become. When you let your eyes close fully and your breathing slow to its own natural rhythm, the sense of location begins to soften. The room is still there. The familiar sounds and textures of the space around you are still present at the edges of awareness. But the center of attention drifts, the way a boat drifts when the anchor rope is loosened but not removed. You are still here. And here, it turns out, is not the isolated coordinate it can feel like in the busy hours. Here is a point in a continuous field. A position in a structure so vast and so intricate that no single perspective can hold it, but so consistent and so lawful that any position within it can, with patience, come to understand the whole. Astronomers call the universe homogeneous and isotropic at large scales. Homogeneous means the same in every location. Isotropic means the same in every direction. Together the words describe a cosmos that does not have a special center and does not have a preferred orientation. No place in the universe is more fundamental than any other. The light we receive here is representative of the light available everywhere. The physics we practice here is the physics of everywhere. And when we point our telescopes outward in any direction and look back far enough in time, we see the same large-scale structure repeating. Clusters of galaxies arranged along filaments, filaments surrounding voids, voids of almost perfect emptiness hundreds of millions of light-years across, like the spaces inside a foam, like the architecture of something that was once evenly distributed and then rippled into structure by quantum fluctuations so small they occurred below the scale of the atom, in the first fractions of the first second of everything. The large came from the unimaginably small. The web of galaxy filaments that spans the observable universe traces its origin to quantum-scale variations in the density of the early cosmos, regions where the energy was infinitesimally more concentrated, where gravity had a slightly stronger grip, and where over hundreds of millions of years that slight advantage accumulated into the first stars, the first galaxies, the first great structures. You are looking, when you look at the cosmic web, at the amplified signature of quantum uncertainty, at the way the universe's smallest rules left their fingerprints on its largest shapes. Nothing is truly separate from anything else in this story. The scale changes. The intimacy of the connection does not. There is a particular kind of wonder that arrives not in a sudden rush, but in a slow settling, like dusk arriving over a wide and quiet landscape. It does not announce itself. It simply deepens the quality of the attention, changes the texture of the silence, makes the air feel slightly more inhabited. This is the wonder available to anyone who spends enough time with the real dimensions of the cosmos. Not the giddy vertigo of first encountering the numbers, the light years and the megaparsecs and the billions of years, but something quieter and more sustaining. A sense of being genuinely located, of understanding, at least in outline, where you are and how you came to be here and what the place you occupy actually is. You are on a rocky world orbiting a middle-aged star in the outer regions of a barred spiral galaxy that is one of more than 2 trillion in the observable universe. You are made of atoms forged in stellar cores and scattered by stellar deaths across billions of years and billions of light-years before finding each other in this particular configuration. You are warm because a nuclear fire 93 million miles away is burning hydrogen into helium at a rate of 600 million tons per second and has been doing so for 4.5 billion years. You are conscious because 4 billion years of chemistry on this one world produced, through a process of incremental variation and selection so slow it looks from the inside like stillness, a nervous system capable of modeling the world it inhabits and asking questions about the model. You are asking questions about the model right now, even in your rest, even as the thoughts grow slower and the edges of the day begin to dissolve into something softer and less defined. The questioning does not stop when the conscious mind begins its nightly retreat. It changes form. It becomes something more like listening than asking, more like receiving than pursuing. And perhaps that is the more honest posture anyway, when the subject is a universe 13.8 billion years old and 93 billion light-years wide. Perhaps the appropriate response to something that large is not a question aimed at it like an arrow but an openness held toward it like a bowl. Something that can receive whatever arrives without demanding that it arrive in a particular shape. The shape of what arrives, when you are still enough to notice, is often light. Light is what the universe sends. It is the primary medium of cosmic communication, the carrier of almost everything we know about everything beyond this atmosphere. And light, for all its apparent simplicity, is among the strangest things the universe contains. It has no mass. It does not experience time. A photon emitted by a star 10 billion years ago and arriving at a telescope on this world tonight has not aged in the interval. From the photon's perspective, if a photon could be said to have a perspective, no time passed between its emission and its absorption. The journey that took 10 billion years from our frame of reference took 0 seconds from the photons. Light lives entirely in the present tense. It does not accumulate a past. It simply is, and then it is somewhere else, and the interval between the two is, for the light itself, non-existent. This is one of the places where the physics of the universe becomes genuinely difficult to hold in the mind without the mind softening its grip on ordinary categories. Time, which feels from the inside like the most fundamental and inescapable of all dimensions, is revealed by relativity to be flexible, local, dependent on the state of motion of the observer. The faster you move, the slower your time passes relative to someone standing still. At the speed of light, time stops entirely. The universe has built into its deepest structure a speed limit, and at that limit, time itself reaches a boundary it cannot cross. Light does not travel through time. Light is, in some sense that resists easy articulation, exempt from it. And yet light carries history. This is the paradox that sits quietly at the center of observational astronomy. The photons arriving from distant galaxies carry no personal memory of their journey, experience no duration, age not at all in transit. But the information they carry is ancient. The image they deliver to our instruments shows those galaxies not as they are, but as they were millions or billions of years ago, when the light began its crossing. We look outward and we see backward. Distance and time are the same direction when you are working with light across cosmic scales. The telescope is a time machine that only moves in one direction and cannot bring you home. There is something in this that deserves to be felt slowly. Every image of a distant galaxy is a fossil, a preserved moment from an unreachable past, delivered to the present by messengers that do not age. The Hubble Space Telescope, and its successor now watching the sky with golden mirrors tuned to infrared wavelengths, have gathered images of galaxies so distant that the light reaching their mirrors left its source when the universe was only a few 100 million years old. Those early galaxies look different from the ones we inhabit now. They are smaller, more irregular, more violently active, still in the early turbulence of their formation. They are not like this. They are like what this once was, before the long settling, before the generations of stars lived and died and seeded the interstellar medium with the heavier elements that make rocky planets and liquid water and the slow chemistry of life possible. We did not come from nothing. We came from them. From those early, irregular, turbulent proto-galaxies blazing in the first few 100 million years of cosmic time. The material that makes this galaxy, this star, this world, this body, passed through multiple generations of stellar processing before arriving in its current form. The iron in your blood was made in the core of a massive star that lived and died before the sun existed. The calcium in your bones was scattered into space by a supernova whose light, if anyone had been watching, would have briefly outshone its entire galaxy. You are not contemporary with the universe. You are downstream from it. You are what the universe has refined itself into after billions of years of successive transformation, each generation of stars building on the chemical legacy of the ones before. This is the lineage that no distance can erase. The galaxies we cannot reach are our ancestors in a material sense that is more literal than metaphorical. The elements that compose every living thing on this world were forged in stars distributed across a galaxy that was itself assembled from the debris of earlier structures reaching back to the very first moments of nucleosynthesis, when the universe was minutes old and protons and neutrons were combining for the first time into the lightest elements, hydrogen and helium and traces of lithium, the raw material from which everything else would eventually be made. Everything else is a long word. It contains stars beyond counting and the spaces between them and the planets cooling in the dark around them and whatever stirs, if anything stirs, in the long patience of those distant worlds. Everything else is a long word. It contains the slow revolution of spiral arms taking hundreds of millions of years to complete a single turn, and the patient accumulation of dust in the plane of a galaxy where gravity gathers what was once dispersed, and the molecular clouds that grow cold and dense until gravity wins its quiet argument with pressure and a new star ignites in the dark, and somewhere in the warmth of that new light, the possibility, always the possibility, of something that looks upward. We look upward. That is the particular trait of this particular arrangement of ancient atoms. The hydrogen in the water of your body is as old as the universe itself. It was born in the first minutes, before there were stars, before there were galaxies, before there was anything but the cooling plasma of a cosmos still deciding what it would become. That hydrogen traveled a long road to reach you. It passed through stellar interiors. It was locked into molecular bonds and broken free again. It drifted in nebulae for millions of years before gravity drew it into a collapsing cloud that became a star that eventually died and seeded a new generation of clouds, and from one of those clouds came a solar system, and from that solar system came a planet, and from that planet came, after 4 billion years of patient chemical experimentation, something capable of understanding what hydrogen is. And now that hydrogen, still ancient, still carrying the timestamp of the universe's first breath, gazes out at the Andromeda galaxy and understands that it will never arrive there. This is not a tragedy in the way that word is usually used. It does not involve loss in the ordinary sense, because nothing was ever promised. The universe made no contract with the life it incidentally produced. The laws of physics do not contain a clause that guarantees any mind access to the full breadth of what exists. The expansion of space was not designed to frustrate. It simply is. And within what simply is, we find ourselves located, conscious, briefly warm, looking out at a darkness so immense that most of it is already beyond any possible recovery. The Virgo supercluster, the structure we loosely call home at the largest scale to which we genuinely belong, is itself merely a tendril of something larger still. The Laniakea supercluster, mapped only in recent decades, contains the mass of 100 million billion suns spread across 500 million light-years of space. It is a vast gravitational watershed, a region of the cosmos where matter flows inward along filaments toward the great attractor, a region of concentrated mass so distant and so wrapped in the obscuring dust of our own galaxy that we only inferred its existence before we could begin to see it. We live in the outskirts of this structure. We are peripheral even within our own cosmic neighborhood. And Laniakea itself is one of millions of such superclusters distributed through the observable universe. The web of them, the cosmic web that simulations render in glowing threads and dark voids, is the large-scale structure of everything we can see. It is a structure that has been growing since the very early universe, when tiny quantum fluctuations in the density of matter were stretched by inflation to cosmic scales and seeded the gravitational differences that would eventually pull matter into filaments and walls and nodes where superclusters gather like dew at the intersections of an enormous invisible web. We are one droplet of that dew. One small node in a filament in a supercluster in an observable universe that stretches 46 billion light-years in every direction and contains, within that sphere, somewhere between 100 billion and 2 trillion galaxies, depending on how you count and how you define the boundary of what can in principle be detected. And beyond that boundary, the universe continues. It continues in a way that has no known edge. Cosmologists speak of the universe as likely infinite, or if finite, then so large that the distinction between finite and infinite carries no practical weight for any being living in any single location within it. All of this exists. All of this is real in the sense that the word real has any meaning at all. And from our single location, our single droplet of dew on a single thread of a single web, we can see most of it, in the sense that light from most of it has been traveling toward us for long enough to arrive. But we cannot go to it. The seeing and the going are entirely different things, and the distance between those two capabilities is itself a kind of definition of what it means to exist as a finite being in an infinite or near-infinite expanse. There is a particular kind of quiet that comes from sitting with this understanding long enough that it stops feeling like information and begins to feel like atmosphere, like weather, like the temperature of the room you are in right now, which you notice only at the edges of attention, present but not demanding, simply the condition within which everything else occurs. The vastness is not something that happens to you when you think about it. It is the continuous background of every moment of existence, the permanent context in which all smaller things unfold, the ocean of space and time through which every thought and breath and heartbeat moves without knowing it, the way a fish moves through water without ever pausing to name what surrounds it. And perhaps that is the most honest relationship one can have with the infinite. Not the relationship of understanding, which always implies a kind of mastery, a standing outside the thing in order to comprehend it, but the relationship of immersion, of being within something so completely that the boundary between the self and the surrounding dissolves, not into mysticism, but into a quieter and more accurate kind of knowing. The galaxies we cannot reach are not behind a door that is merely locked. They are behind a door that the universe itself is moving, sliding further away with every breath, with every heartbeat, with every second of time that passes in this room and in every place where time passes, which is everywhere, always, without pause or interruption. The recession of the distant universe is not something that happens in moments. It is something that happens continuously, the way erosion happens, the way aging happens, the way the universe expanding is not an event but a condition, a permanent feature of the space we inhabit, as fundamental as gravity and as indifferent to preference. There is a number that astronomers use called the Hubble constant. It describes the rate at which the universe expands, how fast space grows between any 2 points that are not gravitationally bound to each other. Its value has been measured and debated and refined over decades, and the precise number remains a source of genuine tension in modern cosmology, a disagreement between different measurement methods that physicists call the Hubble tension, a small crack in the current model that may or may not widen into something that changes our understanding entirely. But whatever its precise value, the constant tells us something unchanging in its implication. Space between unbound objects grows. It grows now. It grew while you were reading this sentence. It will grow in the silence after these words settle and the mind begins to drift toward sleep. And the growing does not stop at the boundary of what we can see. It continues beyond. The unobservable universe, the regions from which no light has yet reached us and from which no light ever will because the space between us and them is already expanding faster than light can cross it, that universe grows too. The boundary of what is reachable, already drawn so much closer than the boundary of what is visible, retreats a little further with every passing year. The sphere of galaxies we could in principle visit, given infinite time and infinite fuel, shrinks rather than grows. We are losing access to the cosmos not through any failure of our own, but simply through the passage of time, which is itself a form of the universe moving on without asking permission. Ancient astronomers looked up at a sky that seemed fixed. The stars appeared eternal, the heavens unchanging, the cosmos a dome of constant light placed over a stationary world. We have learned since then that nothing in this picture is accurate. The stars move. The sky changes over vast timescales. The world turns and orbits and careens through the galaxy at speeds that would be terrifying if speed were something the body could feel without reference. And the galaxy itself moves through the local group, and the local group falls toward the great attractor, and the whole vast assembly rushes in a direction that cosmologists have named, with a kind of accidental poetry, the dark flow, a motion of the largest structures we can observe toward some concentration of mass beyond the observable horizon, something we cannot see pulling on everything we can. We are passengers. That has always been the human situation, and knowing it does not change it. The ground feels still. The air in this room feels still. The darkness outside the window, if there is a window, feels like the darkness of a place that stays in place. But everything is moving. Everything has always been moving. The stillness is a local illusion produced by the fact that everything nearby moves with us, carried along in the same gravitational currents, the same expansion, the same long trajectory through a universe that does not have a center and does not have a preferred direction and does not organize itself around any particular point of observation. Every point of observation is, in the equations, equivalent. The view from here and the view from a planet orbiting a star in the Triangulum galaxy obey the same laws. The physics does not change. The expansion looks the same from every location, every galaxy receding from every other, no center, no edge that anyone standing anywhere could point to and name. The universe is not arranged around us. We simply are, here, one arrangement of matter among arrangements beyond counting, each one the center of its own observable sphere, each one bounded by the same horizon, each one surrounded by the same darkness of galaxies receding beyond reach. And in this equivalence there is something that feels, if you hold it gently enough, like a kind of companionship. Not comfort in the easy sense, not reassurance, but the recognition that whatever it is to be a conscious thing looking outward from a bounded location into an unbounded dark, that experience is not unique to here. It is the condition of mind wherever mind exists. Every eye that has ever opened on any world in any galaxy has opened inside the same horizon, has looked out at the same fundamental limit, has encountered the same vast enclosure of the reachable and felt, perhaps, the same particular quality of stillness that arrives when the mind finally stops arguing with the size of things and simply rests inside it. The stillness is not emptiness. It is the opposite of emptiness. It is what fills the space between thoughts when the thoughts have grown quiet enough to stop crowding out everything else. It is the presence of the universe, not as an idea, but as a surrounding, the way the ocean surrounds a swimmer who has stopped fighting the current and begun instead to float. Floating is a kind of trust. Not a reasoned trust, not a trust arrived at after deliberation, but the trust of the body that has released its tension and found that the water holds. And the universe holds too, in its way. Not with warmth, not with intention, but with the simple and absolute reliability of its laws, which do not waver and do not make exceptions and do not change their character in the middle of the night when everything feels uncertain. Gravity behaves the same in the dark. Light travels at the same speed through silence as through noise. The expansion continues at its measured pace regardless of whether anyone is awake to register it. There is comfort in consistency, even in the consistency of things that limit us. The cosmological horizon that seals us within our observable bubble is not a wall that was built to contain. It is a consequence of physics so fundamental that to wish it otherwise would be to wish for a different universe entirely, one with different constants, different laws, different relationships between space and time and the speed at which information can propagate. That universe might not have stars, might not have the slow gravitational patience that allows matter to clump and warm and eventually kindle into nuclear fire. The precise values of our physical constants appear, in many cases, to be finely situated within the narrow ranges that permit complexity to arise at all. This is the observation that philosophers and physicists call fine-tuning, and it does not require a theological interpretation to carry weight. Whether it points to design or to the anthropic logic of a vast multiverse in which only certain regions permit observers to exist, the observation itself stands. We are here because the numbers allowed it, and the same numbers that allowed it also drew the horizon that bounds us. We are the universe's way of knowing it cannot cross itself. That thought, held quietly, has a particular texture. Not melancholy exactly, not acceptance in the resigned sense. Something closer to the feeling of a landscape that is both beautiful and unreachable, a mountain range seen from a great distance in late afternoon light, the peaks catching gold while the valleys fill with shadow, the whole scene complete in itself, not requiring your presence within it to be fully what it is. You see it. That is its own form of arrival. The seeing is not a consolation prize for failing to touch. The seeing is a mode of contact that the universe makes available to the kind of matter that developed eyes and the neural architecture to interpret what the eyes receive. We are that kind of matter. We are the part of the universe that receives light from distant galaxies and converts it into something that carries meaning. The photons that left Andromeda 2.5 million years ago and entered a human eye or a telescope lens did not carry meaning when they departed. They were electromagnetic radiation propagating through vacuum, following the laws that govern such propagation without deviation or intention. But when they arrived, when they were captured and focused and processed by the instruments of perception, they became something else. They became information. They became the basis for understanding. They became the reason someone sitting quietly in the dark can form a thought about a galaxy they will never visit and feel something in the forming of that thought that is not nothing. What that something is has no clean scientific name. Science describes the photon's journey and the eye's reception and the brain's processing and the concepts that prior learning has made available for interpretation. But the quality of the experience, the particular interior texture of contemplating something immeasurably vast and unreachable, that quality lives in the space between the measurements, real without being quantifiable, present without being locatable in any neuron or any equation. It is what this kind of narration reaches toward, not by describing it directly, which cannot be done, but by creating conditions in which it can arise, the slow pace and the dark and the words that move like water and the silence between them where the actual understanding, if understanding is even the right word, quietly settles. The Milky Way will merge with Andromeda in approximately 4.5 billion years. This is not a collision in the way the word usually implies. The stars within each galaxy are so widely separated that most of them will pass through the merger without striking anything, carried in new orbits by the reshaping of gravity as the two galactic structures interpenetrate and eventually settle into a single elliptical galaxy that astronomers have already named, informally, Milkomeda. The gas clouds will collide more directly. Star formation will surge in the turbulence. New stars will ignite in the chaos of the merger, and some of those stars may warm new worlds, and on some of those worlds, if the timing is right and the chemistry obliges, something may stir in the warmth and look upward at a sky transformed beyond recognition, a sky in which the familiar band of the Milky Way has been replaced by something stranger and more luminous, a galaxy in the slow process of becoming something it has never been before, the stellar populations of two ancient systems now braided together by gravity into new configurations that no eye has yet seen and no mind has yet imagined. That future sky will be different in ways that are difficult to fully picture from here, from this moment, from this particular arrangement of matter looking forward through 4.5 billion years of time as though looking through water, the shapes visible but distorted, the distances compressed by the imagination in ways that the actual passage of time would never allow. 4.5 billion years is long in a way that resists feeling. It is longer than the Earth has existed. It is long enough for life to begin from chemistry and climb through every form it has taken to reach the form now lying quietly in the dark, breathing slowly, perhaps at the edge of sleep. All of that, the full sweep of biological time on this planet, fits inside the interval between now and the moment when Andromeda's gravity begins to visibly distort the structure of the Milky Way's outer arms. We cannot feel that length. We can state it. We can write the number. But the felt sense of it exceeds what the human mind was built to hold, because the human mind was built for intervals of hours and seasons and lifetimes, not for the glacial patience of gravitational dynamics playing out across billions of years of cosmic time. And yet the mind reaches. That is its character. It reaches past the boundaries of its own comfortable scale and attempts to encompass what exceeds it, not perfectly, not without distortion, but genuinely, with a kind of earnest stretching that is one of the more moving things about consciousness as it exists in this particular form. We are small minds attempting large thoughts, and the attempt itself, however imperfect, is something the universe was not doing before life arose to do it. The rocks do not reach. The gas clouds do not reach. The stars burn with perfect indifference to their own magnificence. Only the brief and fragile arrangements of matter that have achieved awareness perform this particular gesture of extending inward attention outward toward the unreachable, of caring about what cannot be touched. Caring is perhaps the most cosmically improbable thing we do. The universe does not require it. The laws of physics contain no term for it. And yet here it is, arising from the same processes that built stars and seeded planets and stirred chemistry in shallow water, this inexplicable orientation toward meaning, this refusal to be satisfied with mere existence, this reaching into the dark with instruments and mathematics and imagination and something that feels, from the inside, like wonder. Wonder is not a small thing wearing a modest name. It is the engine of everything we have learned about where we are. Every telescope built and every calculation made and every sleepless night spent puzzling over data that did not fit the prevailing theory has been powered, at some level, by wonder, by the refusal to accept ignorance as a permanent condition, by the belief, never fully justified but never fully abandoned, that the universe is knowable, that its structure can be mapped and its history reconstructed and its future anticipated, that the darkness is not absolute but only the current limit of the light we have managed to produce and direct. We have directed a great deal of light into the darkness. The Hubble Space Telescope and its successors have gathered photons from galaxies so distant that the light left them when the universe was only a few 100 million years old, when the first stars were only beginning to ignite in the primordial dark, and the structures we now call galaxy clusters were still assembling from the density fluctuations seeded by inflation. Those early galaxies look different from the ones we inhabit now. They are smaller, more irregular, more turbulent, caught in the act of becoming rather than the long stability of maturity. Looking at them is looking backward in time, and looking backward in time is one of the ways the universe has arranged for itself to be understood, by producing beings who can build instruments sensitive enough to catch ancient light and minds subtle enough to interpret what the catching means. What it means is that we have a history. Not just a biological history or a geological history or even a stellar history, but a cosmic history, a narrative that begins at the first moment and runs without interruption to this one. A single continuous thread of causation connecting the quantum fluctuations of the earliest universe to the thought forming right now in whatever mind receives these words in the quiet of a night that is itself a small event in the long calendar of a planet that has been keeping time since before there was anything alive to notice the passing. The passing is what we are inside of. Every moment of this narration is a moment of the universe experiencing itself through the temporary and improbable instrument of a conscious mind, and every such moment is unrepeatable, not because the laws of physics forbid repetition in principle, but because the specific configuration of matter and memory and accumulated experience that constitutes a particular mind at a particular moment is so vastly improbable that the numbers involved in calculating its recurrence reduced to something so close to zero that the difference between impossible and merely astronomically unlikely collapses into something that feels, for all practical purposes, like the same thing. You will not pass this way again. The universe will not arrange itself into this particular configuration of awareness and darkness and slow breathing and words about galaxies drifting through the mind like light through deep water. This moment is singular. And its singularity is not a cause for grief, but for a particular quality of attention, the kind that arrives when you finally understand that nothing is being saved for later, that the only version of this that exists is the one happening now, in this room, in this quiet, in the slow and unrepeatable passage of this breath. The galaxies we cannot reach are not waiting for us. They do not know we exist. The Virgo cluster, 53 million light-years distant, its thousands of galaxies bound together in a gravitational congregation so massive it bends the local flow of the universe's expansion, has no awareness of the small planet at the edge of an ordinary spiral arm where something briefly conscious has looked outward and felt the distance and found it both unbearable and beautiful. The beauty is entirely our contribution. It does not live in the photons. It does not live in the mathematics of the gravitational potential well. It lives in the encounter between the universe and the part of itself that has learned to receive the universe as something more than information, as something that resonates, as something that, in the receiving, becomes for a moment not just known but felt. Feeling the universe is an unusual thing to do with a brain. The brain evolved for smaller tasks, for reading the intentions of other faces, for navigating familiar terrain, for anticipating danger and recognizing food and managing the intricate social mathematics of living in groups. None of these tasks required an understanding of cosmological expansion or the light travel time to the Coma cluster or the eventual thermodynamic fate of a universe trending toward maximum entropy and minimum available energy. And yet the brain, given the tools of language and mathematics and the accumulated knowledge of generations, reaches past the tasks it was built for and into scales of space and time that would have been literally unimaginable to every human ancestor who ever lived. We are using a Stone Age instrument to contemplate the end of time. And somehow, improbably, it works. Not perfectly, not without distortion, but genuinely, with a kind of luminous incompleteness that is perhaps the most honest mode of understanding available to a finite mind inside an infinite dark. The dark is not empty. You have traveled through enough of this narration now to know that. The dark between galaxies is threaded with magnetic fields and sparse gas, and the occasional cosmic ray traveling at nearly the speed of light on a journey of millions of years. The dark within galaxies is full of the infrared warmth of dust and the radio whisper of hydrogen and the slow revolution of matter around the gravitational center where, in most large galaxies, something enormous and patient waits, a black hole of millions or billions of solar masses, warping spacetime so severely that not even light escapes from within its boundary, a region where the physics we know reaches its own horizon and falls silent. We are made of the same universe that contains those silences. The carbon in your body was forged in a stellar interior. The iron was born in a supernova. The hydrogen has been here since the beginning. You are not separate from the cosmos looking in at it through a window. You are the cosmos, locally, temporarily, improbably organized into something that can look. That looking is the universe's most extraordinary achievement, more extraordinary in its way than the formation of galaxies or the ignition of stars, because galaxies and stars are the products of simple forces operating over vast time, while awareness is something else entirely, something that the equations do not predict and the simulations do not produce, something that arrives at the end of a long chain of physical causation and then turns around and contemplates the chain. And now the contemplation is ending, as all things end, as stars end and galaxies end, and the long narrative of cosmic time will eventually end in a darkness so complete and so cold that the word darkness will have lost all contrast, all meaning, all reference. But that ending is unimaginably far. Tonight the stars are still burning. The Andromeda Galaxy is still 2.5 million light-years away, its light still crossing the space between us, still arriving, still entering the instruments we have built to receive it. The universe is still young enough to be luminous. And you are here, inside the luminous universe, on a small warm world, in a quiet room, at the edge of sleep, where the boundary between waking thought and dreaming begins to soften and the galaxies that no human will ever reach become simply what they have always been, the ancient dark, the unreachable light, the permanent and beautiful beyond, present in its absence, close in its distance, the endless surround of everything we are and everything we came from and everything that will remain. When the last thought has quieted and the last breath has settled and the universe continues, as it always has, in the immeasurable, unhurried, and absolute silence of its own infinite becoming.